Welcome to the Security Lab podcast.
We spoke to Keith Rozario previously on SayaKenaHack and the Macau Scam. This is the final part of the interview.
So you sound as though you're onto something with because I actually saw the YouTube video of you when you gave a talk at a Hack in the Box conference in 2018. From what I understand from that video is that you haven't stopped wanting to build a breach notification service. Maybe you have already. I'm not sure. What are your plans?
Yeah, at the moment I have no
that?
plans. Well, we did try for a while and it just doesn't work. And the political situation isn't helping in Malaysia. You need some level of political stability so that the agencies in government can actually execute change, because they've got some amount of stability they have. So if you don't have that stability, which we haven't had for a while now, it's not going to work, right? Because the guys in the agencies don't know who the next boss is going to be, and this doesn't help in that situation.
I see.
Yeah. The challenge is that if you don't have a centralized breach notification website, so for example, if corporation A lost your data and they sent you an email and says, we take security very seriously, but we're sorry we lost your data, etc., etc., etc. And then 2 years later, they get another thing from corporation B and corporation C. All of these singular threads of data that on you that was lost, together combined can make a pretty big picture of who you are. And the more you know who you are, the more data that's out there, the easier it is for these scams to be executed, because the more data I know on you, the more likely I am to succeed, and the more likely I am to choose something that might succeed. Hit an emotion that's going to really get you to open your bank account or something like that. So if you have a centralized notification place where someone can come in, they can type in some information and figure out, well, of all the 35 breaches in the database, how many am I a part of, and what data was lost as a result of that? Because a breach isn't just breach on you, right? Because there's also, now we're seeing a lot of these breaches, you lose the sort of graph information. So it's like not just you or your parents, but the information that connects you, that I can tell from this database that these are your parents, or that these are your children, or that you and you are related. You and you travel together very often, so maybe you're married, that sort of thing. And then that relationship data, which comes a lot as well, that increases even more, right? Because then that's really how you can get more information and execute better scams, if you will. But that's the idea, right? That was the idea, that you have the one singular place where someone could come, enter information, and get a full idea of all the breaches that we know of. These are the breaches that you're a part of. This is the data that's freely available to anyone with an internet connection if they wanted to get it. And then you can take precautions and it still falls back to the individual to take precautions. But at least they have that starting point of, here's where I am and here's the data that's available out there that I know of, right? Without some sort of centralized system where everybody had to go, all you have is an email in your inbox from 2 years ago when they actually had the breach. It'd be very hard to piece together what are the pieces, what are the threads of data on you that's available out there.
Know what you're talking about, centralized data and trying to detect patterns and things like that. It reminds me of our contact tracing system.
Okay. Yeah, contact tracing will only work if you have a strong government behind it. You have to have some sort of centralized authority that can do it. That's the only way it works. And then it's a good idea. And then this is, again, one of those ideas, right? So hackers are almost universally anachronistic and they love anarchy. But at some point, we have to be grown-ups and say, well, some things need some sort of centralized authority and control for us to effectively operate society in some sort of effective manner, right? So, and these are just one of the cases. Right?
Yeah, and then it will require like a centralized database, and which invites attacks also, and it kind of it's a vulnerability.
Well, so for example, in SayaKenaHack, I was very, very concerned about this, right? If you publish the data online, you really don't want to have, you don't need to publish the data. You just need to publish that you are in this data and here's the information about you. I don't have to show the actual information. I say, well, your phone number's in the breach, this phone number's in the breach. And what I did was I masked out everything except the last two numbers of your phone number. And that way you can be sure, okay, these are the numbers that are in the breach, right? So you know what the numbers are in the breach. But those last two numbers to anyone would be pretty useless. It's a pretty useless thing. So a breach notification website doesn't necessarily have to have the data per se. It just has to have the sort of metadata about the breach. So you will know that your travel history was lost, or your medical history was lost, or your address was lost. But you don't have to tell you the actual address in the system. So the system wouldn't be, doesn't necessarily have to have that information. Yeah.
But it would require the data having to be centralized somewhere. In a way, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not IT savvy, right? But Numera, the reason why all of that telco subscribers' information was so easily leaked was because they were located in one centralized location under a government contractor's purview, which the government contractor didn't take the necessary steps to secure, and hence it was stolen just like that, and it was all located in one single location, like a treasure trove, like a treasure chest, for someone to come along and take it, right?
Correct. Yeah. So it was in one single location. That's correct. Who lost the data is up for debate. We may never know the answer. But it was in one location. It was part of I forgot what they call it, public cellular blocking service.
Yes.
It's another okay idea where if you reported your phone stolen, they would sort of filter the information back to a central service so that no one else could register your phone on a local telco subscriber anymore.
Yes.
It's an okay idea. It's a good idea, right?
Yes.
But that again requires some sort of centralization. And you put all your eggs in one basket. These kind of things happen.
You drop it and you risk everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it seems like we're back to one big round and then coming back to the same issue again. I'm inclined to think that actually there's no way out of it. What other mitigation strategies are there in terms of technology? Because we have always looked at both society and technological solutions whenever there's a breach, and where technology is concerned, I think one of the latest feature that was rolled out following the Macau scam was verified source identification. Do you think that's a good idea? And how effective?
The people targeted don't know how to use it. So this is one of those things that I'm not 100% sure what the technology is, but basically there are certain trade-offs, especially when things run on the old sort of phone network, right? The old PSTN phone network, right? That thing's really old, right? And that thing's, spoofing phone numbers on that is, in some countries it's relatively easy, in other countries it's relatively hard. So depending on the sort of level of maturity or the modernity of their PSTN system. But I think any sort of technical solution is going to be a problem. Think of it this way. We build a bank account and all the banking infrastructure is built so that you can conveniently transfer your money to somewhere else, right? That's the point of that system, right? Yeah. And the scammers are basically leveraging the point of the system to send the money back to them. And they're using no technical means to sort of execute this. They're just using sort of regular scams, right? This is something anybody can understand. I call you, I pretend to be a police officer, I get you to transfer money to me. It's nothing technical in there. There is no, zero-day vulnerability anywhere in this equation, right? But if you join any sufficiently large company, right? What they sort of do is they train you as well. They train their staff. They sort of run these things where they basically do scam. They try to fish you, and if you click on the link, then you get some trading. You got to go take 2 hours of trading here or something like that. So basically, it's trying to inoculate their population so their population can see. So if you click the link, fine. You shouldn't have done that. Here's the training to help you understand that, and hopefully you don't do it again when it's a real phishing email hits the network. Probably want to try something like that on a national social public scale. Like if we started to have this one section of PDRM go out there and actively try to scam elderly people. And then right at the end say, we shouldn't have done this. We're actually from BDRM. We tried to scam you, and then teach them that phrase. And you know what? This is my idea. Basically, I think that if you do that and you teach people that way, not like tell them run a campaign or run advertisements, so that those things don't really work, but actively try to scam them and just right at the end tell them that it was a scam and the PDRM system, etc. And then what's going to happen is that the old people talk to other old people, right? So inoculate this that population, right? It's like think of a scam as a virus, and then what you need to do is you need to vaccinate some, right? And you don't need to vaccinate all; you just need to vaccinate some, and that increases, as we said, the cost of doing business for the scam, and that sort of puts them out of business, right?
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now, back to the show.
That's roughly the idea I think we should be sort of focusing on, because this idea of, let's put an advertisement in the newspaper and teach people we tried this many times, it's failed all the time. Why do we think it's going to work,
Singapore was very good at this. I suddenly became a Singapore drama fan. So there's this drama, there's this Hokkien language drama which is made in Singapore with Singapore actors and so on and so forth. And their favorite scene is where there's a bunch of old people hanging out at the community center talking about the latest government subsidies or incentives or helps and things like that, and it's on television, and there my mom is 75 years old sitting right next to me. It works, I tell you. We have to use TV dramas probably to do this strategy that you talk about.
You gotta use something that works in that demographic, right? Because everything else doesn't seem to work. And the fact that these guys can drive Lamborghinis suggests that they have a pretty good business model. What we need to do is ensure that we don't allow them that specific business model. As long as you increase the cost of doing business, they won't be able to do business. They'll just run like any other organization. In fact, worse, because they are heavy cash flow impacted. They won't be able to take a loan from the bank or whatever. So that's the idea, right? All the other stuff, trying to have some high-end technical solution isn't going to quite work, because again, these systems that we built are built so that you can transfer money across, and you can do this and you can do that, and they're leveraging the system for the purpose it was built for. And you just can't beat that.
Fair enough, fair point.
Yeah. But I think although we know and we admit that we're not able to control our own information, but we have to also convince ourselves that it's up to us to control with whom we share our information. But at the end of the day, it's back to the users themselves.
Sorry.
It doesn't sound too convincing to me, though. I'm not convinced.
Well, you sort of think of these loyalty programs, right? So you go to a coffee shop, you drink a coffee, and then they say, "Oh, if you sign up for a loyalty program, we'll give you a free coffee today." And the take-up rate of that kind of offer is usually quite high. That's why they offer it in the first place. But the effective cost of that is that, would you give me your data for the price of a coffee, right? And the answer to that is almost always yes.
Yes.
Because people sign up for these things all the time. Even personally, look at my wallet as well. You got all these loyalty cards that I never use after that. It's just completely useless. But it's just a matter of probability. The more data you give to other people, the more likely it's going to get lost, right? So because it's more out there. So maybe don't get that loyalty card if you're not going to use it. Something like that.
Yeah. So it boils down to privacy is almost non-existent. The only thing we can do is we just have to assume breach, or assume that our information is out there, and take all the necessary steps to protect ourselves. Like if you get a suspicious call, just viral it, just share it, just inoculate the rest in your community about what's happening.
Exactly, something like that. So these scams often take a very pattern-based approach, because they run, again, like any other business, they can't have a different scam for every time for every person. So they run the same script for everything, just like any other call center. And the higher you increase that cost, the higher it gets to do business, basically. But yeah, I think the other thing is that privacy is all about context, right? It's not about nobody knows data on me. Privacy is about I have control of my data and I can choose who to share that with, right? Because there are going to be a lot of situations where maybe you really want that loyalty card because it does give you that huge discount and it does make sense for you as a consumer in that particular context, right? If you go to a doctor, for example, you have to give them your age and your medical history because otherwise you won't get the benefit of going to the doctor. So that's the point of, it doesn't mean that you keep all the data and not share it with anyone. It just means that you think a little bit more deeply about who you share it with and only share it when you think there's actually going to be value for you to share that data and not the other way around.
Okay.
Right. So maybe another thing, I think it's hard to tell people or tell myself what privacy is in that case. Defining privacy is difficult. What about fabricating data to get that cup of coffee?
Fabricating data? Oh, that's not a bad idea. I mean, after all, let's think about that, right? So what's the impact of that? One coffee company has some fake data in their account and maybe someone gets a fake SMS, not that big a deal, I think. I'm not sure if you're going to break any laws though.
For a cup of coffee?
Especially you use someone else's IC number or something. But I mean, again, why don't you just not take the cup of coffee and just pay full price? And if you really don't want that, that seems okay, But yeah, I mean, I don't have the answer. I don't think anyone has the answer, but it's something that we have as a society to figure out, right? It's going to get worse and worse. It's going to get more and more.
Yeah, I agree.
So we just have to figure out how to live with it.
From your YouTube video, the Hack in the Box conference, you mentioned that your website actually garnered over 100,000 views, right?
Yep.
And then did the people try to contact you, and what were the questions which they asked you? Were they asking you like, what can they do to protect themselves and so on and so forth?
Some, not many people contacted me, enough that I could respond to everyone who reached out. But I mean, some asked that, some asked where you got the data. Some people came and they asked very specific, very specific questions about, I need to find data on this particular person with this IC number. And I said, I just can't help you with that, right?
Yeah.
And I get randomly, a bunch of people come. I got one guy who asked me if you could send me the data, and he was, I think, a property agent or something.
Trying to lower the cost of his business.
Yeah, exactly. So you got a property agent, you can figure out who's owning which house where, and then that's good information, right? He wanted the data to do that, or and he was willing to share some profits with me or something. I don't know.
Okay.
But a whole bunch of those kind of discussions and things. So less about what can I do, is more of those kind of weird emails.
Yeah. Okay. So, there were some Malaysians who were concerned, but mostly no. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, let's not be so pessimistic. 100,000 viewers, I think roughly about 300,000 queries, so 300,000 ICs being pumped into the system to request data out. So that's not too bad, right? Not too bad. I think people are interested if you give them a chance and they really want to know about it. But I mean, think about it this way, right? If you got data leak, okay, great. But if tomorrow Malaysia gets a new prime minister, that's more important to your daily life, right? There are other things that sort of cloud your attention. You only have so much attention that you can give these kind of stories, and that attention is being competed with for all the other stuff that's going on in the country and all the other stuff that's going on social media. And as geeks and as IT guys and everything else, we sort of can't understand why people don't pay as much attention as we do. But the rest of the world has got other priorities to worry about.
That's true.
So you can't expect them all to worry about data breaches 24/7, especially when a data breach happens every day. I mean, what's the news of that, right? Okay, another 18 million breaches. So what? I don't even know how 18 million records look like. Who cares? So at some point it reaches like fatigue. You're just like completely fatigued and drained out, and you're like, okay, this thing, whatever, any news headline about this, I'm just going to skip through because it doesn't really add any value for me to click through that link and read it and understand it. I'm not going to spend the limited amount of cognitive energy I have to understand this article.
You sound as though your data breached out. You've been studying this a lot.
Yeah, so it's like you can't expect the population to do this. It's just unreasonable to expect them to do that. What you need to do is make it easy for them to consume the data and understand it. And that was one of the things that I tried to do. But at the end of the day, there's just a bunch of other stuff going on. And then, people have almost everyone in the country has been at least in one of these breaches. So the idea now is not to unbreach yourself. There's no such thing. Once the data's out, the data's out. It's like trying to protect yourself, which is where we should be focusing on. And that's really it.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it's really how we protect ourselves.
Yeah.
There's one guy who wants to be known as Sky, short for Skywalker. The question that he wants to ask you, because we were like pulling questions right from the other members. So Skywalker had a question.
All right.
He wanted to know how you jumped the wall.
Jump the wall.
I was wondering in the world what he was talking about. Then it occurred to me, from Malaysia to Singapore. Maybe that's what he meant. How did you jump the wall? Why did you jump the wall?
It's a causeway. There's two causeways.
Why did you jump the causeway? Anyway, that was his question. Good old Sky. Keith, you are a goldmine of information. The opinions that you shared, the insight that you shared, the feedback that you have.
I try.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're most welcome. I had a good time. I had a great time, guys. Thanks.
Okay, we had a good time listening to you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us this week on Security Lab. Make sure to visit our website at securitylab.asia, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Spotify, or via RSS so you'll never miss a show.